Everybody's favorite president has just taken power, and he has been busy with a fire hose of stuff. A lot of the stuff he did promise. The pardoning of these violent criminals, alongside many who were brought up on charges and convicted of charges and everything from trespassing to obstructing an official proceeding, this kind of thing. People who were there, if you will, not in perpetration of a violent crime. He erased all of those in one fell swoop, all of those charges and all of those convictions, commuting these sentences and pardoning all of these people all at once. There was no individual review, clearly, and it's deeply disturbing. And I mentioned prior to your arrival here last hour, I was talking about him essentially building his own paramilitary. I think these are people who you're going to see called upon to do things like administer supplemental support at the border or handle some kind of a protest or demonstration. These are people who are going to be normalized. So it's more than just a pardon. I believe it's a method of intimidation. I know I've said brown shirts before. I mean, kind of Hitler's army, a personal army. But there is a sense, Michael, that I find this extremely disturbing on a lot of levels because of the damage they did and what they did, and beating police officers effectively to death. I wonder if you can comment on this commutation that he went right after on day one.
Well, I will say it wasn't surprising, because this is something he did and teased in the run-up to the election when he would have these rallies. You talk about the paramilitary. There's always been, whether it's the Proud Boys or the Oath Keepers or groups that I can't even identify but have seen dozens of times, many of their members at his rallies. At the first time I saw the biggest slew of them was in Utah at the vice presidential debate between Mike Pence and Kamala Harris in I guess it was in 2020, around then. There already is this sort of paramilitary that is unofficially part of Trump world when he's on the road. So the fact that he's trying to officialize it isn't surprising. The J6 thing, Trump has, to me, personally, because I know so many people who work on Capitol Hill in every facet of work that can be done on Capitol Hill, who were terrified that day. And to know that the president doesn't have their backs at all is an incredible thing. But I put more of the blame on the silence of Republican elected officials on Capitol Hill in D.C., who just let this stuff happen, but have to walk by the people that were assaulted every day. And some of them themselves were living in fear. Senators and congressmen running, ducking, putting gas masks on, their staffs terrified. They were there that day. And they're not speaking up against this right now with any outrage whatsoever. The fear that this man instills in the people that support him is something I've never seen before in politics. I've seen adherence, I've seen devotion, I've seen super fandom. Even with Reagan, people, when he started to lose his faculties, his biggest supporters talked about it. Nixon was left in the dust by people who felt that he had broken the law. So I've never seen the sycophantishness that is happening now with these people on Capitol Hill who just let him do it. Now, they couldn't change it. There was nothing they could do. So, but speaking about it is okay too, because it's horrendous.
Well, as you suggested and implied, they've actively avoided commenting on it. They're being besieged by questions on the part of the correspondents who cover the Hill. Ask for comment. You go, I didn't really look at it. I didn't really see. It's that typical kind of, he's
Time
got
to
that
move
power.
on. That's in the past. We're about the future. All of these sort of, maxims of evasion are being employed. And look, I understand it with some people. I understand some people agree with it, right? I don't understand how, but I understand that they do. But there has to be some sort of leadership taken on this, and it's beyond me.
Well, it's interesting, too. I'll just say this as an aside, that they want to look forward. That is the typical, we're not talking about that anymore. We're on to the next thing. But they actually are impaneling a committee, or at least had planned to, investigating January 6th on their own terms, the
Yeah.
Republicans in the House. So they were essentially going to, I feel, whitewash the past, recharacterize the past, and in revisiting January 6th, they were going to do their own version of history, which they're still, I think, largely going to do. They're just going to do it without that committee, maybe, because it comes out that in subpoenas, particularly to, I'm sorry, I just spaced her name, Michael, Albert, maybe you have it, or Kim.
It's Kim. Oh, sorry.
In the subpoenas, it is thought that in subpoena communications around January 6th, there are Republicans, members of Congress, who were sending sex related text to Cassidy Hutchinson, she's the name I just couldn't think of for a second.
Yeah.
Cassidy Hutchinson was one of the people who was going to be, again, she testified at the first J6 hearing that was run by Democrats. She was going to be called upon at this hearing. But now there are Republicans saying, don't subpoena her, ixnay on the J6A, because there are a bunch of sects, I guess the kids call them, right? And they were sent to Cassidy Hutchinson from members of Congress.
Yeah.
So again, I'll turn it to you, but we learned that they were going to weaponize their own sort of investigation to erase history. Now, I don't know where that falls. And by the way, I want to make it clear, I'm asking you these questions, not just out of, aren't you shocked, but because you do have a political perspective. So you can kind of do the handicapping for the political damage or benefit that any of this accrues to either party.
Yeah, it's the glass house of representatives, right? I mean, they'll until it gets to them, they're fine slinging those arrows and throwing those stones. It doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, and I'm not saying that there's nefariousness on the part of every member of Congress at all, but there is a holier than thou position that many take, especially on the right. I'm not saying that it doesn't exist on the left, but it happens more on the Republican side because they're the ones that are most reliant about holiness. There are plenty of things to criticize about the Democratic side, but the ones who lean on holiness are often the ones who hold themselves to that level, and it doesn't, and they're the ones that end up violating that. So it doesn't surprise me at all. We've heard from people like Madison Cawthorn, Roger Stone, other people in the Republican world about crazy drug parties and sex parties and things like that. It doesn't happen all the time. I don't believe that that's happening every weekend. I don't believe it's happening with very many members of Congress, but that it happens, and that something like this, that these sects to Cassidy Hutchinson exist, that doesn't surprise me. But nor does it surprise me that they want to have their own investigation, because they didn't like the last investigation. It didn't give them the results that they'd wanted. The result that they wanted was that Trump was elected again, and that's what they got. And so they can sort of run roughshod over whatever happened in the last Congress. But again, there's no evidence to it. There's no, I haven't seen the smoking gun or the hot text or anything like that. So until I see it, I can't really comment on it. But that's kind of implicit blackmail exists doesn't surprise me at all.
And this guy Loudermilk is really a piece of work, huh?
Very Loudermilk from Georgia. Yeah.
He's the guy who said that they are going to call many people in for questioning who have been pardoned by Joe Biden because they don't have anything to worry about in terms of any kind of legal exposure, so they have no reason to evade the pardon. I'm sorry, go ahead.
You can't use the Fifth Amendment to incriminate yourself because incrimination doesn't matter because you're not subject. But again, exactly. Legal scholars are saying you may not want to incriminate yourself publicly. It's not necessarily in the face of law. It might. I don't want to incriminate myself from further prosecution. It might be for something else for which you weren't pardoned. Because you were pardoned doesn't mean you can't commit another crime. or infraction and be tried for it and imprisoned for it. If you were pardoned by Joe Biden and you go out and you kill someone, you're not pardoned for that, for example.
Well, just funny that Loudermilk himself was a big part of this January 6th question, because he had led a tour of the Capitol complex on January 5th, all right, showing people around. And by the way, it wasn't open at that time. In other words, this is a time when the complex was closed off to tours, et cetera. And that really has never been spoken of. That is to say, never been, mentioned or widely reported in a way that, has dogged Loudermilk. So he can get away with this crap about how he wants to start his own committee investigation. Those pardoned, those not pardoned. He actually wants to bring in J6 committee members from the original investigative bodies. So he's a piece of work in himself.
He is. And he's somebody who's been a real Trump sycophant, again, to use that word, for a long time. I was at one of Trump's State of the Union addresses, and I was sort of in the back when Trump was leaving, not in the back of the chamber, but Trump was leaving. He walks through a path, and Loudermilk was right there. And I heard Loudermilk just say to him, "Home run, Mr. President, home run, you hit a home run." And I thought, my God, I've seen the pat on the back and great speech, and I hadn't seen, and Trump was at that point a new flavor. It may have even been his first State of the Union, and Barry Loudermilk was right there, just trying to be, suck up to the president. He hasn't stopped since.
There is another level of ass kissing going on right now. I mean, it's unreal. I mean, I'd be embarrassed. One of the things about Hollywood, they talk about, you have to schmooze people, and I'm not good at that. Like, if I don't want to talk to somebody, fortunately, I like people and I like talking to them. So for the most part, it does not really affect me. But when I feel like I'm only talking because I'm trying to get something, I just really don't have that move, that ass kissing move. But these guys really got good at it in a hurry. Oh, I don't know if they're good at it. I mean, I've never seen it so obvious. It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's obvious, and look, people were like, Democrats were like that with Barack Obama. They were like that with Bill Clinton. Republicans were like that with Ronald Reagan. Less so with George H.W. Bush. He wasn't the kind of person that inspired that, but they were certainly supportive. And there was a wing of old sort of partisan Republicans who were that way. And everybody has their inner circle, right, that are partisan to them. That's part of politics in general. But the mystery is how this person cast that spell, and I don't get it. I don't get the connection with that they make to him, because objectively he hasn't made their lives, these elected officials, much better. He's kept them in office, but they didn't need Donald Trump to keep them in office.
This is the political side, and that's what's interesting to me. I think you make such a good point. It hadn't occurred to me that I see him as a powerful political figure, and that power is, in a sense, bestowed upon those who suck up to him. And so, therefore, that gives them political momentum. But your point's an important one, which is, no, these guys probably already had their districts, or they pretty much had their political lives guaranteed. So he's actually not bringing them a lot of that political power. It's possible, though, Michael, he's not building political headwinds for them, which they might have to deal with if he was to call them out in some sort of negative fashion.
The re-election, the incumbency success rate in the House of Representatives is like 94%, right?
Yeah.
If Nikki Haley had been president right now, these people would not be facing a firestorm of opposition from within their own party. They would not be, any less likely to beat a Democrat next time than they are today. What may be in the actual raw number calculus elections is that they know, and we know, that Trump, for some reason, has awakened a sleeping giant of voters that they want to hang on to. That what boggles my mind is when he's not there, they don't come out. We've seen that in special elections. We've seen that in off-year elections. When Donald Trump's not on the ballot, these people don't bother. And you would think, as an elected official, some elected officials would know that, right? Doesn't mean you have to cross him, but to suck up to him is a conscious decision that doesn't seem like it has borne out well for very many people. As a matter of fact, those people are usually the ones who he most publicly ostracizes for having one moment of disagreement with him.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. The end of the ride is no fun, even though
Right,
the
that's
ride
a good
might be.
point.
Chris says, talk about the Musk salute. That really happened. Yeah, I think you and I disagree on this. I think Musk absolutely was giving a Nazi salute. I absolutely believe it. I saw it. He did it twice. He pounded his chest and he went like that. And then he turned to the rest of the crowd. He pounded it again and saluted like that.
Yeah, we disagree with that. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not going to take it to the mat because I don't want to give it that much air. I think that Elon Musk is a very awkward, nerdy, geeky guy, as a lot of people who have great success in technology will agree that they are. And I think that was his dab, his whatever. It doesn't matter. I mean, I'm not going to fight anybody who thinks that I'm wrong about that, because it's just my opinion. But his, there is a consistency that runs through the people he supports, the parties he supports, the texts he's issued that have come out since then about Nazism and whatnot. I believe.
What were the? I'm sorry, maybe I missed it because I didn't see anything. I didn't see him declare anything kind of disavowing.
There was nothing declarative. He actually disavowed it as that. But there were texts that showed sympathies that I perused the other night, and I don't know to when they were contemporaneous, and I don't want to quote them. I'm sure we can find them. But he to me, and it doesn't matter. Like, I hate even standing and fighting about it, because it doesn't matter. I'll never know.
No, we're not fighting. We're just interpreting. But
no. What I mean is, I'll never know if I'm wrong or right, and it doesn't really matter.
Sure.
What matters is the substance of what he has become and his influence on our American politics and on this administration. And that matters.
Totally agree. Yeah.
So
John Watson points
out.
I'd
rather it have been a Nazi salute so that we could see blatantly. I'd rather him say that it was, so we can see exactly what's behind the Emperor's new clothes.
It could have been the Terran salute, the evil alternate universe Federation in Star Trek, says John Watson.
Well, yeah, that's sort of what I mean, Mark. I don't know the Terran salute, but Trekkies and that ilk of person who, they love that stuff, and they're wildly successful, in that world. Those shows and that industry is so wildly successful. That's what I was saying. It seems like it was something that was just awkward. But again, I don't
exactly
give him the benefit of any doubt. That was how it struck me.
Now, I had a look. Among the things that Trump has talked about on the campaign trail and is executing on day one is this slew of executive orders. Bannon talked for a long time and on numerous occasions about the plan to handle the media. And he talked about flooding the zone. It was an articulated plan by Steve Bannon to hit the media with so much stuff, so many controversial things that they couldn't possibly handle them all and give them all oxygen. It feels as though that is what's happening. And so even as this president goes after DEI, dismisses all the people in that part of government, the freeze on information and shutdown of NIH. I mean, these are projects that go on over years for cancer research, for viruses of all sort, and extending down to the CDC. Now, the CDC can't get out any information about H5N1 avian flu. These are serious things that are happening, but they're happening, as we were saying, in this world of the first few days being filled with everything from immigration raids to pardons. And so it is hard to give these things their appropriate oxygen.
Yeah. So the cold comfort here is that Donald Trump does a lot of posturing, and he does a lot of day one things. He's not great at day 2 and day 30 and day 100. And so the symbolism of the message is what he wants to get across more than anything. Build the wall, build the wall, build the wall, and then throw up a couple of panels, right? That's always the example that's easiest to get to. His efficiency record is not great. That said, the fact that this is what he's coming out of the gate with is both expected and appalling.
Trump did not shut down NIH, the NIH. He has paused a lot of what they do. Yeah, he's paused a lot of what they do. But Randy, that's not done by incoming presidents. That's not what happens, okay? They're going to go, okay, let's stop everything down at the CDC, NIH, all the, I mean, so this is quite unorthodox. And it does have an effect. I mean, you know, research and scientific research, it's on a continuum. It's on a linear, planned strategy that extends out over years. And
For
you just
sure.
can't,
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's fact, Mark. And you're right. But presidents do this, and they do it more and more. They just don't do it in this way. You know, that day one executive order thing for some, you know, if enough reporters are out there saying, what are you going to do on day one? Well, they're going to have a list of things by the time they get there. You know, you're in Iowa in freezing cold and you got me shoving a mic in your mouth. What are you going to do on day one? Or to a voter, what do you want them to do on day one, right? And then they get there, they have a whole list of things that they've told people they're going to do on day one, and they want to stick to it. And that's part of the problem as well. But you're right, the level of things that he is doing and the priorities he is making when this is a nation that he promised to help, and he's going into places. I mean, today he's talking about doing away with FEMA, right?
That's right.
And so, like, the whole idea that the government is there in part to help the people is not something that he embraces at all. And so you see NIH, you see FEMA, you see the Department of Energy, Department of Education, all in his crosshairs. Because why? Because it sounds good to the people who don't want, you know, other people to be lifted up.
I like that you qualified what you said, because there is a sense of longtime political reporters, and you're one of them. I mean, you're a longtime political reporter. I mean, in your reporting, there's sort of a normalization of things. And I think when you see a president, for example, buy into crypto with his own coin, and then his wife has their own coin, and then those members of his family have their own coins. They're these meme coins that are associated with no kind of value, and they're not, in other words, you can't, there's no currency associated with them. I mean, almost in the virtual sense, and not the virtual meaning internet, but in the sense that you can't use them to buy something. It's just the the arbitrage of that world. And then you, after you establish your coin, throw up government, and you appoint people to govern digital assets in your administration. You give, through executive order, all this altitude to the world of crypto. You're self-dealing there. There are a lot of ways that this administration stuff. So there are executive orders.
But you're also playing with your legacy there too, because you can connect dots here, Mark. The people that are in crypto, the tech billionaires too, many of them are the ones who came to the Trump family and said, we think we need, in order for MAGA to continue, we need our guy. We need somebody on that ticket. That's where you can see the sort of genesis of J.D. Vance. And so what does that do? If they're controlling, right, the ticket, they're controlling the party, then of course the party is going to go back to them and boost up what they're doing. So it does come back to the politics of even MAGA and the Trump Vance ticket.
And adjacent to that, I'd say, is the open corruption of this administration. You know, I feel that grifter is to be kind. I mean, a grift feels a little bit of sort of what we've seen on a daily basis and on a monthly basis from Donald Trump. The grift, the sneakers, everything else he sells, the Bibles, etc. Ways in which you can enrich Donald Trump by, in Oklahoma, making sure that they buy $3 million worth of the Trump Bible so that they will go into the school. These are grifts. But what's happening with crypto is dark money that can never be traced. So if you're really looking to just pour, and I'm talking about billions of dollars into the president's pockets, you can do it now. The door is wide open in this dark world of crypto, untraceable.
Yeah. It's true. It's untraceable, and it also skirts, I think, probably the emoluments clause in a way. I'm not a lawyer, but I think we all learned about the emoluments clause with Trump in his first term, and the way that he was getting money from foreigners were staying, foreign governments were staying at the Trump hotel, and Secret Service, like, he was making money off of other people going there. So he continues to make money there, and that's a violation, certainly with a foreign government, of the emoluments clause. And domestically and with crypto, I don't know as well because I'm not a lawyer, but it's certainly related. It's a cousin to that, and that influence doesn't go away. And the fact, as you rightly point out, that it's dark, that is a covert influence. Look, we're all learning about crypto, right? It's a new thing. It's 10 years old, or however old it is, which is very, very new as a currency and as a way of making money, of raising money, of multiplying money. But the fact that the president of the United States is doing it, and it's dark, and you don't know all about it, is enough to mean that it shouldn't be happening.
Well, exactly right, too, and sort of recapitulating the history that Trump has with self-dealing and taking care of himself and his family. As you know, the Trump property was kind of a place that all that money was dropped when you had a deal, any kind of regulatory meeting. The T-Mobile thing comes to mind. When T-Mobile had a regulatory meeting at the White House, and with the past Trump administration, the first time, they bought out levels of the hotel, I mean, the entire floors of the hotel at the Trump hotel in Washington. And the grift associated with Secret Service continued even when he wasn't president. The Secret Service would charge top rates for the various resorts that he said he was likely going to be visiting. And so the Secret Service has to buy up all those rooms. Even if he doesn't go there, they have to buy them just in case he might go. So there are all these different ways in which that he can money himself. I want to quickly get to Hegseth, and I don't know if that vote has happened. Kim, has the Hegseth vote happened yet? You can let us know if it does happen. I know later today that confirmation vote will happen. And Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins, the two senators who may not vote for Hegseth, would still not be enough probably to...
It would still be 51-49. They voted not to move his nomination to the floor just yet. But today, I think that this will not happen until late tonight or tomorrow, unless you have information that I don't, which is pretty possible. Been dealing with a few other things today. But I think that they're going to need to find some friends, Murkowski and Collins, in order to make this happen. And so 51-49 isn't enough. Neither is 50-50, because Vice President Vance would be the deciding vote there. So they're going to need to find two other Republicans to say that Pete Hegseth isn't there. And then the other part of that is the keg dry stuff. What does that mean for RFK Jr. and Kash Patel? A Republican Senate with a six-seat majority is not going to just keep rejecting members of the cabinet, and which is the one, or maybe two, that people would most like to see not be confirmed. Is it Pete Hegseth? Is it Kash Patel? Tulsi Gabbard? Is it RFK Jr.? It's not going to be a swath of them with that much of a majority in the Senate. So people are careful. They'd like to see a lot of them see Hegseth rejected, but by the same token, that would heighten the chances that those other three get confirmed.
This is interesting. So you're just saying you have to look at the universe of potential confirmations, and the entire universe ain't going to get through, is your point?
Exactly, yeah. I mean, okay. That's the thing. There are four of them that are quite controversial right now. And they would each need four Republicans. I think Kennedy will have a tougher time. I think it'll be easier for Republicans to vote against a Democrat. And even though Tulsi Gabbard was a Democrat, it's a little different. So I think they'll support her. I just think that you're not going to see a wave of nominations rejected, that clearly.
Finally, I'll just ask you about Ukraine. First, I'll ask you about I think this falls into the category of suck-uppiness that you were talking about, with the congressperson offering up a congressional amendment that would give Trump a third term. And I love the quote associated with it. I'm just doing this from memory. I think you, Michael, pushed this to me originally, the story. Just an outrageous statement like, Donald Trump has proven himself the only chief executive to be able to restore America to its original greatness. And I mean, this is, 2 days into his presidency. He's already proven himself as the only executive in the history of the country to restore it to greatness.
Those are 4 spectacular years prior.
So this is that's just the, again, boy, I hope the boss sees that I was trying to make this this amendment happen for him type thing.
Yeah, look, Trump has alluded to it. There are people in MAGA world who want to see it happen. Lawyers have danced around this with other presidents in the past. It was talked about during Reagan after his second election when he beat Walter Mondale. I'm sorry, when he beat Walter Mondale the second time. He beat Carter and then Mondale. So when he beat Mondale, that was talked about after he had won. It's been talked about by Democrats during the Clinton years. People talked about, well, we should probably mess with the 22nd Amendment. First of all, for it to happen, it would require 2/3 of the House and 2/3 of the Senate, or it would require 38 states to have it happen, or 34 states to have it happen. It's not going to happen. But that it's being talked about is comical. There are ways that Trump could remain president, right? I mean, Vance could run, and this is within the 22nd. Vance could run with Trump as his vice president. It would be constitutionally challenged. Vance could then resign. I mean, it's a little like what happened in Russia. Vance could then resign, and Trump could take over, because that is not prevented clearly yet by the 22nd. But whether or not you can stand as vice president for a third time would probably be challenged. Anyway,
well, I'll tell you the other way that Trump could get a third term is if he got his militia to attack the Capitol on, there's a whole, you've left out, Plan A. I mean, you're going right to Plan B. So,
right, that's a good point. That's a good point. So never mind. So it's clearly going to happen. It will pass, and if it doesn't pass, it'll happen anyway.
Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.